So you got involved in the Lions Club?
Yeah, and I'm very proud of the Lions Club.
Oh yeah, they're very active, aren't
And
they?
I'd be very proud to tell you that for a small little town and a small little area like ours, we're the fourth best contributing club in Europe to the Lions International Benevolent Fund, and we're the 18th best in the world. Now, that's, most people would go, that's a huge
Achievement.
for a small club.
And how did it get started up in the beginning? Yeah?
Well, how it started was, when I was with Great Southerns, I'd be all over the countries, and one evening, I was just after finishing dinner in the Great Southern in Sligo, and I met Eamon Harkin, one of the Harkin lads from Castlebar. Now, Eamon was in Sligo Lions Club at the time, and he asked me to know whether I joined the club. Now, at that age, I hadn't the time because I was away a lot for that. But I said to him, if ever I settle back, I promised him, I shook hands with him. Now, if I tell a person I'll do something, I do it. So maybe 10 years later, right, he met me again. He says, "You never done that." "I'll do this." I says, "Well," he says, "right." So I joined the Castlebar Club, and I was in the Castlebar Club for a couple of months, and to see the operators. And next thing I thought about the club here. And the first bunch of fellas, they were all handpicked, and they were all Fine Gaelers, with the majority of them, and I was only maybe F and F, but they were all workers. Right. And we had a very strong club, very social club, done an awful lot of work. And like, when you think of it now, the whole scene has changed. You had Marty Welch, you had Dennis Egan, you had Bert Farrell, you had Shawnee O'Malley, you had Jock Jackson, you had Marty Welch, you had Pat Murphy, you had Jackie Foley, you had Joe Berry, you had Mickey Berry, and the two Berries would be the only brothers I know that got two Melvin Jones Fellowship Awards. And Joe was a great line. And then we had various...
Was Chris Lavelle there?
What?
Chris Lavelle?
Chris Lavelle was actually, I'll tell you about Chris, is a most interesting character. Right. Chris actually was the cause of hospice.
The hospice?
Yeah. He was the cause.
And
how it came about was, I don't know, was I president at the time? I can't...
Of the Lions?
Yeah. Or was I on the committee? I forget now the thing. But I'll tell you what happened. One morning over in my office in St. Mary's, Mrs. Kelly, who was the assistant matron in Mayo General, came up into the office to me, and she's fuming. And she came down, she says, "Do you know," she says, "it's this bloody country, it's a disgrace. That with the religion, their humanity and everything like that," he says, "in that bloody place down there isn't even a grieving room where people can talk or do anything." She says, "and there's nobody doing nothing about it. And you remember the Lions Club, I'm told, and I was told to come up to you." See, I looked at her, and I said, "Jesus Mary," I says, are you joking me?" So she sat down, she told me anyway, and I said to her, "Look, I tell you what," I says, "I hear you. I'll bring that up at a meeting," I says, in the next Lions Club meeting. So went to the meeting, and in at the meeting, anyway, Bert Farrell was a member at the time as well. Bert was very much involved. So I brought up the problems that they had in Mayo General about no facilities for people to grieve or to talk or anything other than in wards. And is there anything we can do about it? So we talked about it, and at that stage I said to him, "Hey, Farrell, you're a doctor, you know all about this, and come on, join this committee." So he did, and Chris Lavelle up and said, "Well," he says, "if we're going to go down that road," he says, "why won't we do it properly and have a hospice?" You see. And we discussed it. So what actually happened then after that, we agreed that we'd contact the Castlebar Club, the Balnad Club, and that's being a Roscommon, he got the boys in Roscommon involved, and we all contributed 25,000 each to set up a facility. But the first thing when I went back to Mrs. Kelly, I told her that we were doing something about it. So then we got the wheels in motion, and we called a meeting in Castlebar at which Joe Johnson, Bert Farrell, myself, the Bishop, Mrs. Durkin, and several other medics in the Diviners Spot attended, and we decided that we'd go and set up a hospice. And that started it's 30 years ago now, I think. And
And where did you hold the meeting?
well, the first meeting was held of that committee was held in the Imperial Hotel,
Okay.
right? But the meetings then used to be held there at the beginning. And then actually, Joe Donnell, of course, God of love us, Joe Donnell was deeply involved with us as well, God rest his soul. So then the first chairman of the committee here, Mayor Roscommon Hospice Committee, was Cathal Hughes. He served for a year, and then it rotated every year after that. But we still, even today, actually, we should have the buildings by now, but for the negative bureaucracy that we faced with the Western Health Board.
There was opposition, there was.
Well, there wasn't such opposition as such. As you know yourself, it's a costly operation, right? And the state hadn't the resources, in truth, but nobody wanted to refuse. And we got a lot of promises. And then we decided, okay, I think I resigned off the board about 3 years ago. But since then they've decided they're breaking away from the state altogether, and they're going out on their own. But the state gave us an assurance at the time, I think it was Brian Lennon, God rest his soul, that they would fund the staffing at the hospice unit. But I think that, looking back in it on, we should have broke away from the state 15 years ago. Had nothing got to do with it.
But they're very successful now, aren't they?
Well, the palliative care operation is probably one of the best in the country. But it's our ambition, and I said it anyway, we wanted the best, right? And I would say we had difficulty enough with your profession at the beginning too, and some of the doctors weren't inclined to row in behind the concept of hospice medicine, as you probably know. And all down the road we had all thought, but wait, Cynthia Clampett was a general manager or whatever, fundraiser on that. She was a very good dynamic girl. You know, she resigned there or retired there a couple of months ago. But today we went down. I don't know if I witnessed a miracle, Cathal Hughes and myself, or not. When we were looking at a place to have a centre for it, right? There was no way that Knock was out of the question. So they decided in their wisdom that maybe we put a 14-bed unit in Castlebar, which the dynamics of the county would hold, and maybe an 8-bed unit in Roscommon. That was agreed, and that will happen, there's no question about that. But we were looking for a place then to get for facilities for staff and an office for Cynthia and all that type of stuff. And I remember one wet November evening, on a Thursday it was, Cathal and myself went up to Knock. It was pissing old rain out of the heavens. And we went into the chapel in Knock. And he went one side and I went to the other and said a few prayers. And I said, what you said to him, I asked him, he said, we were on his work, if he could help us. Now, but in the meantime, I might be rambling a bit now, the church had more or less implied that they would give us some place, but when it came to it, and Dominic really, God rest his soul, done what he could, but the property committee in the church had nowhere, couldn't give us anywhere. And there was a reason for that too. But anyway, going up the road, and as you go out and Knock on the right inside the road as you're facing to Claremorris, there's a petrol station. And here was this man who was coming out, and I says to Carl, out of the blues, stop the car. Got out of the car and I ran across the road. Tim and I says, good day, not for all evening, sir. And the editor, he says, can I help you? And I told him, I says, of my problem. I says, no, I says, I don't know if you're a bit connected with the Legion here. And I'm not, he says, there's enough rogues out there. So I told him, and he talked for a few minutes. Hold on, he says, this young boy and girl, they were only married a month, was walking down a lane right at the back of it. More here, he says, when are you leaving that cassie you have down there? You'll be going within a month, Dad. These people are looking for a place to use an office. Would it be suitable? I don't know, so they can look at it. So I called Carl, we went down, and this is the truth, up the stairs and in. And the bed was on the floor, right, there were only young couples starting out, and you swear it was meant for us. Now, you can say, is that a coincidence, or is it a miracle? I think it was a miracle.
Is that long ago, is it?
That's, what have I think of 30 years? It might be 20 years, no, 20, it would be 29,
Oh, around 30 years ago, yeah.
around 25 years ago.
25 years ago. And it's still enough, is it?
No, what actually happened there, after a while then, we had a staff there and it was too small. So Joe Donald, God rest his soul, and we were on the committee and we were talking, and there was property came up next door to buy, and we bought it. But we bought it with the Western Health Board, and if the thing survived, it would be ours after 10 years. Now it's a brand new building, and Joe Donald, in fairness, he negotiated the deal on behalf of hospice for nothing. But I mean, and fairness now, I mean, Bertie then done an awful lot of work, God rest him. Himself and Joe Johnson were great friends. I remember the night we decided we'd have to have a figurehead, and Joe Johnson proposed Bertie and I seconded for him to be president, and he'd be, I don't know if there'll ever be another. Yeah.
So it's, is it, have they got the money to build now, have they?
Yes.
They have the funds?
Yes. It should have been started by now, but the reason this didn't have started, when they started excavating over there in Lovers Lane in Castlebar, they found something articles of international heritage importance.
So you can look back with satisfaction?
Well, I'd love to see the buildings there. I mean, the reason I got out at the time, a colleague of yours, a GP in Castlereagh, and another GP, there were two of them, I can't think their names now, and she was in Galway, and we resigned together because I thought it was a job for young bloods.
You're right too, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. And then when you're in the Lions Club, what kind of things would you do to raise funds?
Oh Jesus! In the Lions Club.
What have you done over the years?
What?
What ones stand out in your head? Has been, you do fundraiser every year, yeah.
Well, the one thing that's there wouldn't be a hospice in Mayo only for, or in Roscommon only for the Westport Lions Club. Right? Yeah. There wouldn't be, we helped an awful lot of people, like we have what they call a finance committee, and if the appeals come in, the appeal is looked at, and we'll give that now. There could be an appeal in. There'd be 3 people designated on the finance, and they would deal. They deal with it. They decide on what money they give, or what charity they give, and what way they help. And there's no talk about it. No, I couldn't tell you what. Now at the moment, all the lads with, like, it's a club. It's all the time. It's a very positive club, and I'm very proud of it.